Hello and welcome back to the 49ers First and 10 podcast. 10 minutes of the most up-to-date 49ers news first thing in the morning. I'm your host, Briana McDonald. Joining me is 49ers team reporter, Lindsey Polares. Before we get into today's roster breakdown, we have some initial news. The 49ers announced yesterday that wide receiver Ricky Pearsall has been placed on the non-football injury list. This update comes in just 9 days ahead of training camp. Now, in this episode, we are continuing our roster breakdown series leading into training camp, and today we're taking a closer look at the 49ers cornerbacks group. In our last episode, we provided some updates on the defensive line, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. But as we get into the secondary, our CB room has gone through quite a few changes and additions over the offseason. Lindsey, let's start with this year's draft and second-round draft pick, Renardo Green. Tell us more about the Niners' newest cornerback. What did you learn about him in your brief chat with him, and what does he bring to the team this year?
Yeah, so I wanted to first highlight that with that first wave of free agent additions, the 49ers really zeroed in on their defensive front. And in that same way, that second wave of additions was very much focused on the secondary, particularly at the cornerback position. Renardo Green was a second-round pick out of Florida State, 64th overall. And this is somebody that the 49ers are really excited about. He's a physical corner over the course of his 5-year collegiate career. He's played in a lot of different positions, so he's got some experience at nickelback, playing on the outside, and then also even some reps at safety. So definitely a guy that has shown he can move all around the secondary. I think he definitely flashed during the offseason workout program. That's something the Niners are really excited about, to see someone with a really great work ethic and just being a young player, really just hit the ground running in his professional career. When I was able to speak to him one-on-one right after he was drafted, like minutes after the call with the ownership and Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, he really talked about how he thought his instincts, his football instincts, and his athleticism were his greatest strength. He's happy to bring that to the team. And I think he's definitely an option for the 49ers at nickelback, which is where they definitely need help for that third cornerback spot. Diamador Lindor was filling in at nickelback for a lot of last season. So this, along with many other additions in the quarterback room, which we'll get to, give them some depth and also just some options at that spot.
Now, Renardo Green isn't the only new face joining the group this year. The 49ers are also welcoming 3 experienced free agents in Chase Lucas from the Detroit Lions, Isaac Yiadom from the New Orleans Saints, and Rock Ya-Sin from the Baltimore Ravens. Lindsey, tell us more about why the 49ers decided to pick up 3 experienced cornerbacks in free agency this offseason.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of what I mentioned when we were talking about Green just a second ago, is that the 49ers just needed some depth at cornerback, right? That number 3 spot definitely up for grabs. We saw Ambry Thomas playing out the outside last season along with Charvarius Ward, and then you had Diamador Lindor playing at nickelback. I think when you add Isaac Yiadom, Rock Ya-Sin, Chase Lucas, you've got some veteran options that can be there to play outside and then put Diamador Lindor in that nickelback position. Or if you have Renardo Green, you could plug him at the nickelback position. It just gives you options entering 2024. And that's something that the 49ers definitely needed. Also with those 3, you have some veteran experience. I think with Chase Lucas, he was mostly a special teams guy for the Detroit Lions. But again, he is listed as a cornerback and has spent time in the league, so still valuable experience that he brings. Isaac Yiadom, I think, is a very interesting addition because his best season was 2023. He really took off for the Saints after filling in for an injured player midway through the season. And he only gave up 3 touchdowns on 515 snaps. Very impressive. And even though he only had 8 starts last year, 14 PBUs, that's tied for 7th in the league. Very, very impressive. And then Rock Ya-Sin was dealing with a knee injury last year, but again, just a veteran player that was with the Ravens that had a very strong defense and a good addition for the 49ers.
Now that we've gotten to know a little bit more about our new guys, let's cover our returners. Which players will be back in the Bay for the 49ers defense this year?
Yep. So in terms of cornerbacks, we do have a lot of younger returners. So we've got Darrell Luter Jr. entering his 2nd season, Samuel Womack III, who is a 2021 draft pick, Ambry Thomas entering his 4th season, Keemon Hall in his 6th season, and Charvarius Ward, who is a true CB1 entering his 7th season. I would consider him the veteran leader of that group. But then, like I mentioned, you've also got Diamador Lenore, who played a lot of nickelback in 2024. He's entering his 4th season. And I feel like really since the end of his sophomore season, it's just been a complete upward trajectory for Lenore. Really physical player, just super enthusiastic, passionate out on the field. So I think, between him and Charvarius Ward, you've got your top 2 CBs.
Nice. Now, Charvarius Ward plays a crucial role in the 49ers secondary. He's established himself as a cornerstone of our defense. He led the league in passes defended last season and earned Pro Bowl and AP second team All-Pro recognition. As we head into this new 2024 season, Pro Football Focus recognized Charvarius Ward as one of the top 3 cornerbacks in the entire NFL. Their analyst John Kesko wrote that Ward deserves more praise as one of the league's best corners. So, Lindsey, I'm just curious what your take is.
Yeah, I really think he was such a lockdown corner for the 49ers in 2023. I think, obviously great displays, all the interceptions he had last year, but I always think of how he locked down DK Metcalf in that Thanksgiving game against the Seahawks, and I feel like there's no real better example of a true CB1 that you want, covering one of the best wide receivers in the league and absolutely allowing him to not do very much in that game. And it was just a string of games like that for Charvarius Ward in 2023. I think he's someone that the younger guys really want to learn from. Renardo Green, in that very first, post-draft interview I did with him, he's like, I watch cut-ups of Charvarius Ward. So I think when you've got young guys that are enthusiastic about learning from a tried and true veteran like that, only good is going to come of that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as we quickly approach training camp, what are the key storylines or position battles that you're watching closely within the cornerback group?
Yeah, so I think it's for that third cornerback position, right? You had Diamador Lenore, who can play both at nickelback and outside, really take one for the team and play at that nickelback position in 2023. So I think ideally, if you get somebody like Renardo Green that ends up being ready to play that nickelback position, then you can put Diamador Lenore on the outside, or you find an Isaac Yadam who can play on the outside, plug in Diamador Lenore again at the nickelback position. I think it just depends, playing on the strengths of the new talent that you've got in the building, seeing where the pieces fit. So not necessarily a position battle, but more of where can we have the most successful fits?
Yeah. Now, going into camp again, are there any injury concerns or recovery updates from players that fans should be aware of heading into training camp?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Charvarius Ward, who is dealing with a core muscle injury. He had surgery in the offseason for it. From everything we've heard directly from him over the course of the offseason workout program, he feels like he's going to be on track to be ready for training camp. Obviously, with injuries, you never want to feel so stuck on timelines because things happen, right? It's just the natural recovery process. But barring any setbacks, it sounds like he will be ready for training camp. That's obviously what you want. But we're just a few days out from training camp, which is crazy. So we'll have more clarity on that as soon as players report, which is also coming up Tuesday, very, very soon. So we'll hear more from them. I think that's probably the most significant injury to the cornerback room that I would keep an eye on.
All right. Thank you, Lindsey. But faithful, that will do it for today. Look out for more 49ers roster breakdown episodes leading up to training camp on 1st and 10. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to be in the know on all of the latest official 49ers news. Also, turn on the notifications for any breaking news, Move the Chains updates, and thank you for tuning in.